Amara was born into comfort before she even understood the meaning of the word. From the day she came into the world, her life was wrapped in softness, soft blankets, soft voices, and soft answers to every demand she made. Her parents were wealthy people, respected in the city and known for their success. They lived in a large house with tall gates, shining floors, and rooms that echoed when empty. To many, it was a dream home. To Amara, it was simply normal. As a child, Amara never waited. If she wanted something, she pointed at it. If she cried, someone rushed in. Nannies carried her, maids fed her, and drivers waited outside. Her parents were busy people, always attending meetings, traveling, or hosting guests. When they were home, they felt guilty for their absence, and that guilt often turned into gifts. Toys filled her room from wall to wall. Dolls, games, and expensive clothes crowded her shelves. When one toy bored her, another replaced it. Amara learned very early that wanting was easy and receiving was certain. No one taught her the value of patience. No one told her no for long. As Amara grew older, her confidence turned sharp. She walked with her chin high and her voice louder than necessary. When elders spoke to her, she listened halfway, if at all. She rolled her eyes when corrected and laughed when advised. Respect was something she believed others owed her, not something she needed to give. At home, the workers moved carefully around her. A maid could be scolded for bringing the wrong drink. A driver could be insulted for taking a longer road. Amara spoke without thinking, her words cutting and careless. "Are you slow?" she would ask. "Can't you do anything right?" She never saw the pain in their faces. Or perhaps she saw it and did not care. Her parents noticed these habits but brushed them aside. "She is still young," her mother would say. "She will mature." Her father believed that strict rules would only push her away. And so, Amara continued, unchecked and unchanged. At family gatherings, Amara embarrassed them openly. She interrupted conversations, corrected elders loudly, and laughed at serious moments. Once, when an elderly family friend tried to give her advice, Amara stood up and walked away mid-sentence. The room fell silent. Her parents smiled awkwardly, pretending not to notice. But people noticed. Whispers followed them after events. Invitations slowly reduced. The name of the family, once spoken with admiration, now carried a hint of pity. Still, Amara remained unaware of the damage she caused. In her world, discomfort belonged to others. She lived as though she stood above consequences. School was no different. From her first day, Amara believed rules were meant for weaker students. She spoke to teachers as equals, sometimes as servants. She refused to complete assignments she found boring and laughed when punished. When asked to apologize, she refused. "I don't need this school," she once told a teacher. "My parents can pay for better." She disrupted classes, mocked classmates, and ignored authority. When called to the principal's office, she sat with crossed arms and a bored expression. Her parents were summoned often. Each time they promised improvement. Each time nothing changed. Eventually, the school had enough. The letter of expulsion arrived one quiet afternoon. Her mother read it in silence. Her hands trembled slightly. Her father sighed deeply, folding the paper as though it weighed more than it should. Amara shrugged. "So what?" she said. "I didn't like that place anyway." They enrolled her in another school, then another. The pattern repeated itself. Trouble, complaints, meetings, expulsion. With each failure, Amara's attitude hardened. She began to believe she was untouchable, that money could fix everything, that rules bent for people like her. At home, tension grew thick. Dinner conversations shortened. Her parents argued behind closed doors. Sometimes her mother cried softly at night, believing Amara asleep. Amara noticed none of this or chose not to. One evening, after yet another call from a school administrator, her father came home unusually quiet. He removed his jacket slowly and sat at the dining table without speaking. Her mother placed food before him, but he did not touch it. Amara entered the room, phone in hand, barely looking up. "What's for dinner?" she asked. No one answered. She glanced up, annoyed. "Why are you both staring like that?" Her father slid a sealed envelope across the table toward her. She recognized it immediately. Another letter. Another failure. She scoffed. "Let me guess. They can't handle me." Her mother finally spoke, her voice shaking. "Amara, this cannot continue." Amara laughed. "You always say that." But this time something was different. Her father stood up slowly. His face was calm, but his eyes were tired. Deeply tired. "We have failed you," he said. "By giving you everything, we gave you nothing." Amara felt a brief flicker of discomfort, but she pushed it away. "You're being dramatic," she replied. Her parents exchanged a long look. Years of worry passed between them in silence. The house, once full of noise, felt suddenly heavy. Amara did not know it then, but this moment marked the end of the life she had always known. The beginning of a journey she never asked for but desperately needed. She walked away that night, certain she would wake the next morning to the same comforts, the same rules bent in her favor, the same world shaped around her desires. She did not realize that the girl who had everything was about to lose it all, so she could finally learn who she truly was, a name that brought shame. The days after the last expulsion did not feel different at first. Amara woke up late, scrolled through her phone, and wandered through the house with the same careless confidence she always carried. The sun poured through the tall windows, lighting the marble floors, and the house moved around her as it always had. Maids cleaning quietly, the cook preparing meals, guards standing outside the gate. Everything looked the same, yet something beneath the surface had changed. Her parents were quieter. They no longer corrected her with tired warnings or soft excuses. They watched her closely, as though studying a stranger. Amara noticed the looks but ignored them. She believed silence meant surrender. Her mother tried once more. "Amara," she said one morning at breakfast, "we need to talk about your future." Amara barely looked up from her phone. "I don't want another lecture." "It's not a lecture," her mother replied gently. "It's concern." Amara sighed loudly. "You always worry too much." Her mother's lips tightened, but she said nothing more. The conversation ended there, unfinished and heavy. News of the expulsion spread quickly. Friends called less often. Some parents forbade their children from visiting. At social events, people smiled politely but spoke in careful tones. Amara's parents felt the change everywhere, in business meetings, family gatherings, even casual greetings. Their daughter's behavior had become a shadow that followed them everywhere. At one formal dinner, Amara arrived late, dressed without care. She spoke loudly, laughed at the wrong moments, and interrupted an elderly guest who was sharing a story. When the man gently asked her to wait her turn, Amara rolled her eyes. "You talk too much," she said. The room froze. Her mother's face turned pale. Her father clenched his jaw. The guest smiled awkwardly, pretending not to be hurt, but the damage was done. Conversations fell apart, and the dinner ended earlier than planned. On the drive home, no one spoke. That night, Amara heard her parents arguing for the first time. Not in raised voices, but in broken ones. Words slipped through the walls. "Mistake. Failure. We spoiled her. This cannot go on." Amara lay in bed, annoyed more than concerned. She turned up her music and drowned them out. The next day, her father insisted she visit the last school that had expelled her. He believed facing the truth might humble her. Amara walked through the school gates with her usual confidence, heels clicking against the ground. Teachers watched her pass with guarded expressions. She smirked. In the principal's office, the atmosphere was cold. The principal folded his hands on the desk and spoke carefully. "Amara, your behavior shows a pattern," he said. "Disrespect, disruption, refusal to take responsibility." Amara leaned back in her chair. "I don't see the problem." "The problem," the principal replied firmly, "is that you believe rules do not apply to you." Her father shifted uncomfortably beside her. Her mother stared at the floor. The principal slid a file forward. It was thick with reports. Each page held a moment Amara had forgotten but others could not. "This is not about money," the principal continued. "It is about character." Amara laughed softly. Character doesn't pay bills. The principal's eyes hardened. And money does not buy respect. They left in silence. Outside, her father stopped walking. Do you understand what you are doing to us? He asked quietly. Amara shrugged. You'll survive. Something broke in her mother then. Tears streamed down her face. We are losing you, she said. And you don't even care. Amara felt a brief sting, but pride covered it quickly. You're being emotional, she replied. This is who I am. That sentence haunted her parents. Weeks passed with no school to attend. Amara stayed home, bored and restless. She spent money, ordered things online, and complained constantly. But the house felt different. Her parents no longer rushed to please her. Her father spent longer hours at work. Her mother avoided her eyes. The final blow came one afternoon when a respected business partner visited their home. The man had known Amara's parents for years and had always spoken kindly of her. During tea, he mentioned education and discipline. Amara laughed. School is a waste of time, she said. People like us don't need it. The man placed his cup down slowly. Wealth without wisdom is dangerous, he said. Amara scoffed. You sound old. Silence filled the room. The guest excused himself shortly after. That evening, her father received a message ending their partnership. That night, Amara's parents sat alone in the living room long after she went to bed. The house was quiet, but their minds were loud. We are raising a stranger, her mother whispered. We created this, her father replied, and we must fix it. They spoke of punishments, of tutors, of sending her abroad. Nothing felt right. Amara had ignored every rule they tried to set. Then her mother spoke softly. What about your mother? Her father looked up. The village. She raised you with discipline, she said. With values. He was silent for a long moment. The idea felt harsh, almost cruel. But the more they spoke, the clearer it became. Amara needed to be removed from the world that fed her pride. The next morning, her parents called her into the sitting room. Their faces were serious. You are leaving the city, her father said. Amara laughed. Where would I go? Her mother swallowed hard. You will live with your grandmother in the village. The laughter died instantly. You can't be serious, Amara said. That place is nothing like here. That is the point, her father replied. Amara stood up, anger burning in her chest. You're punishing me because other people are weak. No, her mother said firmly. We are saving you from yourself. Amara stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. She threw things, shouted at the walls, and cried with rage. Never in her life had she been denied. But for the first time, her parents did not give in. The morning Amara was sent away arrived too quickly, and yet felt as though it had been waiting for her all along. The house was quiet in a way she had never known. No music played in the halls. No laughter echoed from the rooms. Even the staff moved with careful steps, as if afraid to disturb something fragile. Amara sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the open suitcase before her. Inside were clothes she did not choose and shoes that felt plain and ordinary. Many of her favorite things had been left behind. When she complained, her mother had simply said, "You will not need them." That sentence angered her more than anything else. She slammed the suitcase shut and stood, folding her arms tightly across her chest. Her reflection in the mirror looked unfamiliar, her face tense, her eyes sharp with resentment. This was not how her life was meant to be. She had plans, dreams, and comforts she refused to give up. Downstairs, her parents waited. The driver loaded her suitcase into the car without meeting her eyes. Amara hesitated at the front door, half expecting someone to stop her, to tell her this was all a lesson and she could return to her room. But no one did. Her mother stepped forward and adjusted Amara's collar. "Listen to your grandmother," she said softly. Amara pulled away. "This is unfair." Her father opened the car door. "This is necessary." As the car moved away from the house, Amara pressed her face against the window, watching the tall gates shrink behind her. The city stretched wide and familiar before her. Smooth roads, towering buildings, flashing signs. Everything she loved stood there, slowly slipping away. She told herself she would not cry. The driver was instructed not to turn back, no matter what. Amara stared out the window, her reflection staring back at her. Angry, proud, and unafraid. She believed this was a mistake. She did not yet know that the village was waiting to break her pride, rebuild her heart, and teach her the meaning of respect. Her name, once spoken with shame, was about to begin its long journey toward honor. At first, the journey felt like any other drive. Traffic buzzed, and the city sounds surrounded them. But soon, the smooth roads cracked into rough paths. The buildings faded, replaced by trees and open land. Dust rose behind the car, and the air felt different, thicker, quieter. Amara frowned. "How much longer?" she asked. The driver did not answer. Hours passed. Her phone lost signal. The silence pressed against her chest. She had never been this far from the city before, never this disconnected. When the car finally stopped, Amara stepped out and looked around in disbelief. The village was small. Houses were modest. Children ran barefoot across dusty paths. People carried water, baskets, and tools. There were no shops filled with lights, no cars rushing past, no noise of the city. "This is it?" Amara asked sharply. Her grandmother stood waiting near a simple house. She was shorter than Amara expected, with silver hair tied neatly back and eyes that seemed to see more than they revealed. "So this is the child they sent me?" the old woman said calmly. Amara did not greet her. She looked around instead, her face twisted in disgust. "How do you live here?" Her grandmother studied her for a moment, then turned toward the house. "You will learn." Inside, the house was clean but plain. A wooden table, simple chairs, one small bedroom prepared for Amara. "Where is the bathroom?" Amara asked. "Outside," her grandmother replied. Amara's face flushed with anger. "You expect me to live like this?" Her grandmother met her gaze. "You are already living. Now you will learn how." That first night was unbearable. The bed felt too hard. The sounds of insects kept her awake. The darkness was deeper than anything she had known. She missed the hum of machines, the glow of screens, the comfort of noise. In the morning, she was woken before sunrise. "Get up," her grandmother said. "We have work." Amara groaned. "I don't do work." Her grandmother handed her a bucket. "You will today." They walked to the water stream as the sky turned pale. Other villagers greeted her grandmother warmly, but their eyes lingered on Amara with curiosity and judgment. "She's the city girl," someone whispered. Amara walked ahead, pretending not to hear. At the stream, her grandmother showed her how to fill the bucket. Amara struggled. The bucket was heavy, the water cold. "This is pointless," she complained. Her grandmother said nothing. Days passed slowly, each one filled with tasks Amara had never done before. Sweeping, washing, cooking simple meals, fetching water. Each chore felt like an insult to her pride. She refused at first. She argued. She sulked. But her grandmother remained firm. No shouting, no anger, just steady expectations. "You will eat when you help prepare the food," she said once. Amara went hungry that day. The villagers watched from a distance. They had heard stories about her behavior in the city. Some laughed quietly when she struggled. Others shook their heads. "She won't last," they said. Amara heard them and clenched her fists. One afternoon, she insulted an old man who asked her to move aside on a narrow path. "Watch where you're going," she snapped. The man stumbled and nearly fell. Several villagers rushed to help him, shooting Amara looks filled with anger. Her grandmother said nothing until they returned home. "Sit," she said. Amara sat, arms crossed. "You think respect is weakness," her grandmother said calmly. "But it is strength, and you have none." Amara stood up angrily. "You don't know me." Her grandmother looked at her sadly. "I know enough." That night, Amara cried quietly into her pillow, not from pain but from confusion. No one chased after her. No one apologized. For the first time, her behavior had consequences. The village did not bend for her. The following days broke her down piece by piece. Her hands blistered. Her muscles ached. The sun burned her skin. People did not move aside for her. They did not fear her words. She was invisible. And yet, in that invisibility, something strange began to happen. She started noticing things, the way neighbors shared food, the way elders were greeted, the way children listened when corrected. Life here was hard, but it was honest. One evening, as Amara struggled to lift a heavy pot, a young girl stepped forward to help her without a word. Amara froze, surprised. "Thank you," she muttered, the word unfamiliar on her tongue. The girl smiled and ran off. That small moment lingered in Amara's mind long after the sun had set. She still hated the village. She still planned to leave. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet crack had formed in her pride. The journey meant to punish her had begun to change her. And though Amara did not yet admit it, the city girl had taken her first step toward becoming someone new. Amara did not wake willingly in the village. Each morning pulled her from sleep like an unwanted hand, dragging her into a life she still refused to accept. The air was cool before sunrise, and the quiet felt too loud. She missed the soft bed, the steady hum of machines, the feeling that the world waited for her to rise. Here, the world moved on whether she was ready or not. Her grandmother was always awake before her. The old woman moved with slow certainty, never rushed, never lazy. She swept the yard at dawn, prepared simple meals, and greeted neighbors with a gentle nod or kind word. She did everything with care, as though even the smallest task mattered. Amara watched her from a distance, annoyed by the calm that seemed impossible to break. "Why do you wake so early?" Amara asked one morning, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Because the day does not wait," her grandmother replied, handing her a broom. Amara stared at it. "This is not my job." Her grandmother met her gaze. "It is today." Amara swept with anger, her movements rough and careless. Dust rose into the air, coating her clothes and burning her throat. She coughed and complained loudly, but her grandmother did not respond. Silence, Amara learned, could be louder than shouting. As days passed, Amara became known in the village, though not in the way she was used to. People knew her as the rude city girl, the one who frowned at everything and spoke sharply. Children mimicked her walk behind her back. Adults whispered when she passed. She hated it. In the city, eyes followed her with envy or fear. Here, they followed her with judgment. One afternoon, her grandmother sent her to the market with a basket. "Buy vegetables," she said, "and greet people properly." Amara scoffed. "Why should I greet strangers?" Her grandmother looked at her calmly. "Because they are people." At the market, Amara shoved through crowds, ignoring greetings and cutting lines. When an elderly woman gently corrected her, Amara snapped back. "Mind your business." The woman stepped aside, hurt flickering across her face. Others noticed. Murmurs followed Amara as she walked away. By the time she returned home, her basket was full, but her heart was heavy with a feeling she did not understand. Her grandmother did not ask questions. She simply looked at Amara's face and nodded slowly, as though she already knew. That evening, as they ate in silence, her grandmother spoke. "Respect is not something you demand," she said. "It is something you earn." Amara slammed her spoon down. "Everyone here hates me anyway." Her grandmother looked at her steadily. "They do not hate you. They fear your words." That sentence stayed with Amara long after the meal ended. The next day brought rain. Thick, heavy drops turned the dirt paths into mud. Amara slipped while carrying water and fell hard. Pain shot through her knees and the bucket rolled away. For a moment, she waited, waiting for laughter, for insults, for someone to mock her as she had mocked others. Instead, a pair of hands reached out. An elderly man helped her stand. A woman picked up the bucket. Another offered cloth to clean her knees. No one scolded her. No one laughed. Embarrassment burned her cheeks hotter than pain. "Thank you," she whispered, barely able to meet their eyes. They nodded and walked away. Amara stood there long after they were gone, confused. In the city, kindness always had a price. Here, it seemed freely given. That night, she replayed the moment again and again. Her grandmother noticed the change in her silence. "Pain teaches what comfort hides," she said quietly. Days turned into weeks. Amara still complained, but less loudly. She still resisted work, but less fiercely. Slowly, her body adjusted to the labor, and her hands grew stronger. Blisters hardened into calluses. Muscles she never knew she had began to form. More importantly, her mind began to shift. She started to see the village differently. She noticed how neighbors shared food when supplies were low, how children listened when elders spoke, how people worked together without being asked. One evening, a neighbor fell ill. Without being told, Amara followed her grandmother to help. She fetched water, cleaned the floor, and sat quietly while others worked. No one praised her. No one thanked her. Yet something inside her felt right. The next morning, a child greeted her cheerfully. "Good morning." Amara hesitated, then replied, "Good morning." The child smiled and ran off. It was a small moment, but it felt like a crack of light in a dark room. Still, the villagers were slow to trust her. They remembered her sharp tongue, her careless pride. Change, they knew, could be an act. Amara sensed their doubt and, for the first time in her life, wanted to prove herself. Not through money or power, but through action. One afternoon, she overheard two women talking. "She will return to the city soon," one said. "This kindness will fade." Amara pretended not to hear, but the words stung deeply. That night, she sat beside her grandmother as the old woman stitched torn cloth by the dim light of a lamp. "Why do you never shout at me?" Amara asked suddenly. Her grandmother smiled faintly. "Because shouting does not plant seeds. It only scares them." Amara lowered her head. "I have been cruel." "Yes," her grandmother agreed calmly. Amara flinched, but the honesty felt clean, not painful. "You can still choose differently," her grandmother continued. For the first time, Amara did not argue. The following days tested her resolve. A boy mocked her past. A woman refused to accept her help. Old habits tugged at her tongue, urging sharp replies. But she held them back. She learned to pause, to breathe, to listen. One afternoon, she saw an old woman struggling with firewood. Without thinking, Amara stepped forward and lifted part of the load. The woman stared at her in surprise. "Thank you," the woman said. Amara nodded, her chest tight with emotion. Word began to spread, quietly, carefully. "The city girl is changing," some said. Others waited. Her grandmother watched all of this with quiet pride, though she never spoke it aloud. "You are learning," she said one evening. "Not because you must, but because you choose to." Amara looked out at the village, at the simple houses, the fading sun, the people who once avoided her and now greeted her with cautious smiles. For the first time, she did not feel trapped. She felt grounded. The village and the old woman were reshaping her. Not with force, but with patience. Each day stripped away another layer of pride, revealing something human beneath. Amara did not yet know how far this path would lead her, but she had stopped resisting it. And in that surrender, her true transformation had begun. Change did not come to Amara in a single moment. It did not arrive with a sudden understanding or a clear promise to be better. Instead, it came quietly, slowly, hidden inside ordinary days and simple tasks. The village did not teach her through long speeches or harsh punishments. It taught her through experience, through moments that left marks deeper than words ever could. By the time chapter 5 of her life began, Amara had been in the village long enough to know its rhythm. She woke before sunrise, not because she wanted to, but because the day demanded it. Her body no longer protested as loudly when she lifted heavy buckets or walked long distances. Still, her heart lagged behind her hands. Pride clung to her, stubborn and wounded. Her grandmother noticed. One morning, after they returned from fetching water, Amara dropped the bucket with a loud thud and sighed dramatically. "Why must everything here be so hard?" she complained. In the city, people live better. Her grandmother wiped her hands on her apron and looked at her calmly. Hard is not the same as bad, she said. And easy is not always good. Amara rolled her eyes but said nothing. That day, her grandmother sent her to help an old woman who lived at the edge of the village. The woman was known for her silence and her failing strength. Amara did not want to go. She dragged her feet, muttering under her breath. When she arrived, she found the old woman struggling to grind grain. Her hands shook, and sweat lined her face. Amara stood in the doorway watching. Are you going to help? The woman asked quietly. Or just stare? Amara felt irritation rise. You didn't even greet me. The old woman paused and looked up. Respect is not demanded, she said. It is shown. Something about the words unsettled Amara. Without replying, she stepped forward and took over the work. Her arms ached as she ground the grain, her movements rough and impatient. The old woman watched silently. When the work was done, Amara wiped her forehead. There. Finished. The old woman nodded. Thank you. The words were simple, but they struck Amara harder than she expected. No praise, no reward, just gratitude. As Amara walked home, she felt strangely restless. She had helped, yet she felt exposed, as though someone had seen through her anger to something softer beneath. Later that week, a moment came that changed her deeply. At the water stream, a group of villagers gathered as usual. Amara was filling her bucket when she noticed an elderly woman struggling to balance hers. The woman's hands trembled, and her footing was unsteady on the wet ground. Amara hesitated. A familiar voice rose in her mind. Not your problem. She turned away. Then she heard a splash. The woman slipped and fell into the shallow stream, crying out in pain. Water soaked her clothes. The bucket rolled away. Time froze. Amara stood still, watching as others rushed forward. Two men lifted the woman gently. A younger girl fetched cloth. People spoke in low, worried voices. No one looked at Amara, but shame washed over her like cold water. She could have helped. She should have helped. As the villagers tended to the woman, Amara felt something she had never truly felt before. Not anger, not pride, not boredom, but regret. Heavy and burning. That evening, she sat quietly by herself, staring at the floor. Her grandmother noticed. You are quieter than usual, the old woman said. Amara swallowed. I saw someone fall today. Her grandmother waited. I could have helped, Amara continued, her voice low. But I didn't. Her grandmother nodded slowly. And what did that teach you? Amara struggled for words. That being strong means nothing if you don't use it. Her grandmother smiled faintly. That lesson cost you nothing. Be grateful. That night, Amara could not sleep. The image of the fallen woman replayed in her mind again and again. For the first time, she understood that silence could be as cruel as words. From that day on, Amara began to act differently, not perfectly but deliberately. When elders spoke, she listened. When children passed, she stepped aside. When someone struggled, she helped, even when it made her uncomfortable. She did not announce her actions or expect praise. Often, no one noticed at all. And that was the hardest lesson of all. One afternoon, while carrying firewood, Amara overheard two villagers speaking. She is quieter now, one said. Yes, the other replied. But let us see if it lasts. The words stung, but Amara said nothing. For once, she did not need to defend herself. She understood that trust, unlike fear, took time. Her grandmother continued teaching her, not through commands, but through example. When insulted, she responded with calm. When tired, she rested without complaint. When wrong, she admitted it. Amara began copying her without realizing it. One day, Amara spoke sharply to a young boy who accidentally spilled water near the house. The boy froze, eyes wide with fear. Amara saw herself in his expression, the fear she had once enjoyed creating. Her chest tightened. I'm sorry, she said quietly. The boy blinked, surprised. It's okay, he replied, then ran off. Amara stood still, shaken. Apologizing had not weakened her. It had freed her. That realization settled deep inside her. Days passed. Her words softened. Her tone changed. The sharp edges of her voice dulled. People began responding differently. Some greeted her. Some smiled cautiously. Some still avoided her. She accepted all of it. One evening, her grandmother fell ill with exhaustion. Without being asked, Amara prepared food, cleaned the house, and sat by her bedside. She did not complain. She did not sigh. Her grandmother watched her with thoughtful eyes. "You are learning the hardest lessons," she said weakly. "What lessons?" Amara asked. "How to care without being seen. How to help without being thanked." Amara nodded. That night, she realized something important. The village was not changing her by force. It was changing her by refusing to revolve around her. She was no longer the center of everything. And strangely, she felt lighter because of it. When she lay down to sleep, Amara thought about the girl she used to be. The one who spoke without care, who walked without seeing others, who believed respect was owed. That girl felt distant now. In her place stood someone uncertain, imperfect, but awake. The lessons she was learning were not written, not spoken loudly, not forced upon her. They lived in moments of choice, in pauses before speaking, in hands reaching out instead of pushing away. Lessons without words. And they were shaping her more deeply than any punishment ever could. Change, when it truly begins, is often unnoticed by the one undergoing it. Amara did not wake one morning feeling transformed. She did not stand before a mirror and see a new person staring back at her. Instead, the change came quietly, like the slow turning of the seasons, subtle yet impossible to stop. By the time the days grew warmer and the village fields shimmered under the sun, Amara had settled into a rhythm she once believed she could never accept. She rose with the dawn, not because she was forced to, but because her body had learned the value of early hours. The mornings no longer felt like punishment. They felt purposeful. She still missed the city. She missed comfort, choice, and ease. But those longings no longer burned with anger. They rested inside her calmly, like memories rather than demands. The villagers noticed the change before she did. At first, it was in small things. Amara no longer pushed past people on narrow paths. She waited. She greeted elders with respect, lowering her voice and her gaze. She spoke less, listened more. Her words, once sharp and careless, became measured. Some villagers watched her closely, uncertain whether this new behavior was real or temporary. Others were kinder, responding to her greetings with nods or soft smiles. Children were the first to trust her. They followed her as she walked, asking questions about the city. At first, Amara brushed them off, but one afternoon she stopped and answered. She told them about tall buildings and bright lights, about moving stairs and fast trains. Their eyes widened with wonder. "You must be rich," one child said. Amara hesitated. "I was lucky," she replied. The words surprised her as much as they surprised the children. Her grandmother observed all of this with quiet attention. She never praised Amara openly, never pointed out the changes. She simply continued to live as she always had, letting Amara learn by watching. One day, the grandmother sent Amara to deliver food to a family whose crops had failed. The basket was heavy, and the walk was long. Halfway there, Amara felt frustration rising. Old thoughts whispered in her mind. Why should this be my responsibility? She stopped walking. Then she remembered the hunger she had felt once when she refused to help. The memory was sharp and uncomfortable. She adjusted the basket and continued. When she arrived, the family welcomed her with surprise and gratitude. They did not know her well. They had heard stories, both good and bad. "Thank you," the woman said quietly, taking the basket. Amara nodded. "We all need help sometimes." The words felt natural, as though they had always belonged to her. That evening, Amara sat outside watching the sun dip below the hills. The sky glowed in soft colors she had never noticed before. In the city, sunsets were hidden behind buildings and schedules. Here they demanded attention. She realized she had begun to see beauty in things she once dismissed. Yet change was not smooth. Old habits returned without warning. One afternoon, a young man accidentally bumped into her while carrying firewood. The wood fell, scattering across the path. Without thinking, Amara snapped, "Watch where you're going." The young man froze. His face hardened. The silence around them grew thick. Amara felt the weight of her words instantly. The anger that once felt powerful now felt ugly. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I should have spoken better." The young man studied her, then nodded and began gathering the wood. Amara helped him without another word. Her heart pounded as they worked. That moment taught her something important. Change was not about never making mistakes. It was about what she did after them. Slowly, the villagers began involving her more. She was asked to help prepare for gatherings, to fetch supplies, to assist elders. Each request felt like a test, and she took them seriously. She worked without complaint, even when tired. People began to speak differently about her. "She is trying," one said. "She has learned respect," another added. These words reached Amara's ears, not as praise, but as responsibility. She did not want to fail them. One evening, a group of villagers gathered to repair a broken fence. Amara joined them without being asked. She carried wood, held tools, and followed instructions carefully. Her hands ached, but she did not stop. An older man watched her quietly. When the work was done, he spoke. "You have city knowledge," he said, "but you are learning village wisdom." Amara smiled faintly. "I'm still learning." He nodded. "That is enough." Those words stayed with her. At home, her grandmother began giving her more responsibility. Amara planned meals, managed supplies, and helped neighbors on her own. She no longer needed to be told what to do. She noticed needs and responded. One night, as they ate together, her grandmother spoke gently. "You are different from when you arrived." Amara looked down at her hands. "I was angry then. And now, I'm still angry sometimes," Amara admitted. "But not at everyone." Her grandmother chuckled softly. "That is growth." As weeks passed, Amara found herself laughing more. Real laughter, not mocking or cruel. She laughed with children, with women at the market, even with herself when she made mistakes. The villagers began greeting her by name. That simple act filled her with warmth. Yet there were still those who doubted her. One woman refused her help, saying, "I don't trust sudden change." Amara accepted the refusal calmly. "I understand," she replied. The woman watched her closely after that, as though waiting for her to fail. But Amara did not change her behavior. She continued helping where she could, speaking kindly, working hard. Trust, she learned, was built quietly. One afternoon, as Amara and her grandmother walked home, a young boy ran toward them crying. His sister had fallen and hurt her leg. Without hesitation, Amara followed him. She helped lift the girl, cleaned the wound, and stayed with her until help arrived. Later, the girl's mother came to thank her, tears in her eyes. "You didn't have to help," the woman said. Amara shook her head. "Yes, I did." That was the moment Amara understood something deeply. She no longer helped to prove anything. She helped because it felt right. That realization frightened her and comforted her at the same time. It meant she was no longer the same person. As she lay in bed that night, listening to the quiet sounds of the village, Amara thought about her parents. She wondered if they would recognize her now. She wondered if she would recognize herself when she returned to the city. Change had begun. Not loudly, not suddenly, but surely. The spoiled girl was fading. In her place, someone steadier was growing. Someone who understood effort, patience, and care. And though the journey ahead was still long, Amara no longer feared it. She was walking forward, not running away. For the first time in her life, she was becoming someone worth trusting. The water stream had always been the heart of the village. It ran gently from the hills, clear and cool, winding its way past homes and fields before disappearing into the trees beyond. People drank from it, cooked with it, washed clothes in it, and taught their children to respect it. Elders said the village grew where it did because of that stream. Without it, life would not last long. So when the water changed, everyone noticed. It began quietly. One morning, Amara was filling a bucket when she saw that the water looked cloudy. She frowned and dipped her hand in. Felt the same, but something was wrong. A faint smell rose from the surface, unpleasant and unfamiliar. She looked around. Others noticed it too. Maybe it rained too much, someone said. It will clear, another replied. But it did not. By the next day, the water was darker. The smell grew stronger. Children were told not to drink from it. Women walked farther to fetch water from smaller sources. Whispers of worry spread through the village like smoke. Then people began to fall sick. Stomach pain, fever, weakness. Fear settled in. The elders gathered near the stream, their faces lined with concern. They spoke in low voices, arguing and guessing. Someone must have angered the spirits, one said. No, it is something natural, another replied. Amara stood at the edge of the group, listening. She felt a strange tightness in her chest. This was not like the problems she had faced before. This was bigger. This affected everyone. Her grandmother came to stand beside her. What do you see? The old woman asked quietly. Amara stared at the water. She thought of the city, of lessons she barely paid attention to in school, of pipes, waste systems, and flowing water. I see a problem, Amara said slowly, but I don't think it's magic. Her grandmother nodded. Then speak. The elders turned when Amara stepped forward. Some faces showed surprise. Others showed doubt. This stream comes from the hills, Amara said carefully. If something dirty is entering it, we need to look upstream. A murmur passed through the group. We have always used this water, one elder said. It has never failed us. Things change, Amara replied gently. Even good things can be harmed. Silence followed. Finally, one elder spoke. We will look, he said, but you will come with us. Amara nodded. The next morning, a group of villagers set out to follow the stream uphill. Amara walked with them, her heart pounding. She was no longer the girl who gave orders. She was simply one of them. They walked for hours through rough paths and thick bushes. The sun climbed high, and sweat soaked their clothes. Some grew tired and wanted to turn back. Just a little farther, Amara urged. At last they found it. A broken waste pipe, hidden among rocks and weeds, leaking dark water into the stream. For a moment no one spoke. Then anger rose. This is poisoning us, someone shouted. Who did this? Another demanded. Amara knelt and examined the pipe. It's old, she said. It cracked over time. It wasn't meant to harm anyone. The villagers looked at her, surprised by her calm. What do we do? Someone asked. Amara took a deep breath. We fix it. Together. Work began immediately. Some villagers blocked the flow of dirty water. Others fetched tools. Amara explained what she remembered, how to redirect waste, how to seal cracks, how to protect the stream. Her voice did not shake. People listened. Men and women worked side by side. Hands passed tools. Sweat mixed with dirt. No one complained. When the pipe was sealed and the waste redirected, they waited. Slowly, the stream began to clear. Clearer. Cleaner. A cheer rose from the group. Tears filled some eyes. They returned to the village with news of hope. Over the next days, the water returned to its clear state. Illness faded. Fear lifted. The village breathed again. That evening, people gathered near Amara's grandmother's house. Some brought food. Others brought thanks. You saved us, one woman said. Amara shook her head. We saved ourselves. But the villagers did not forget. For the first time, they did not see her as the spoiled city girl. They saw her as one of them. Word of what happened traveled beyond the village. Travelers spoke of it. Merchants repeated it. Eventually, it reached the king. A messenger arrived one morning, dressed in fine cloth. He spoke with respect. The king wishes to see the girl who helped save her people, he announced. Amara's heart raced. The village gathered as she prepared to leave. Her grandmother adjusted her simple clothes and smiled. "You used what you knew," the old woman said, "and you used it with humility. That is wisdom." At the king's court, Amara felt small. The walls were tall, the room grand. But she did not bow with fear. She bowed with respect. The king listened as the elders told the story. He watched Amara closely. "You could have ignored their problem," the king said. "Why did you help?" Amara thought carefully. "Because I belong to them," she replied. The king smiled. A feast was held in her honor. Food was shared. Music filled the air. The king presented Amara with an award for service and leadership. When she returned to the village, celebration followed. Laughter, songs, and smiles surrounded her. People who once avoided her now greeted her warmly. Children ran to her side. Elders spoke her name with pride. As night fell, Amara stood near the stream, watching the moon reflect on its surface. The water flowed quietly, as it always had, but she knew now how fragile it was. Her grandmother stood beside her. "You came here as a lesson," the old woman said. "You leave as a gift." Amara felt tears rise. "I was lost," she whispered. "And now?" her grandmother asked. Amara smiled softly. "Now I know where I stand." The stream flowed on. So did Amara's life. And both were cleaner, stronger, and protected because someone had chosen to care. The news spread through the village like morning light spilling over the hills. The king had spoken. A feast would be held. And it would be held in Amara's honor. At first, no one believed it. "A feast? For us?" one man asked. "For the city girl?" another whispered in disbelief. But when the royal messenger returned with clear instructions and sealed letters, doubt faded. Excitement took its place. The village had never prepared for something like this before. Women gathered early to clean and cook. Men repaired paths and cleared open spaces. Children ran back and forth with laughter, carrying small tasks far too seriously. The air felt lighter, fuller, as though the village itself was standing taller. Amara watched it all with a quiet heart. This celebration felt strange to her. In the city, feasts were common, but they were empty, held for business, pride, or appearance. This one was different. It was built on shared effort, shared joy, and shared survival. Her grandmother sat beside her, shelling beans calmly. "You look uneasy," the old woman said. Amara nodded. "I don't know how to receive this." Her grandmother smiled gently. "You receive it by remembering why it happened." That morning, Amara was dressed simply. No fine jewels, no bright colors, just clean clothes, neat hair, and steady hands. She looked like the village she now belonged to. When the drums sounded in the distance, everyone gathered. The king arrived with guards and advisors, but he did not sit above the people. He sat among them. That alone silenced the crowd. Food was shared freely. Pots were opened. Plates were passed. Music rose into the air, slow and joyful. Laughter followed. For the first time, Amara ate among people she had once avoided. She listened to stories. She answered questions. She smiled without effort. Then the king stood. The crowd quieted instantly. "I was told of a village that faced danger," the king began. "A danger that threatened their water, their health, and their future." He paused and looked around. "I was told that when fear rose, unity answered." Murmurs moved through the crowd. "And I was told," the king continued, "that a young woman, once lost in pride, chose to stand with her people." All eyes turned toward Amara. Her heart pounded. "She did not command," the king said. "She did not demand. She listened. She worked. She shared her knowledge with humility." The king stepped forward and held out a small, carefully wrapped box. "Amara," he said, "come forward." Her legs felt heavy, but she stood. The village watched in silence as she walked toward the king. Her grandmother's eyes followed her, filled with quiet pride. The king opened the box. Inside was a medal, simple but finely crafted. "For service," the king said, "for humility, and for leadership that puts others first." He placed the medal around her neck. The crowd erupted. Cheers. Applause. Tears. Amara bowed deeply not just to the king, but to the people behind him. When she spoke, her voice trembled, not from fear, but from emotion. "I did not save this village alone," she said. "I was taught by it. I learned here what I never learned in comfort." She turned to the villagers. "You gave me patience when I deserved distance. You gave me lessons when I needed correction. This honor belongs to all of us." The crowd responded with warmth and joy. Children clapped. Elders nodded in approval. The feast continued long into the evening. Songs were sung. Stories were told. Fires burned gently under the night sky. Amara moved among the people, no longer the center of attention, but a part of the whole. At one point, an elderly woman took Amara's hand. "We once feared you," she said softly. "Now we trust you." Amara swallowed. "Thank you for giving me time." Nearby, a man raised a cup. "To Amara," he said, "who learned and taught us all." Laughter followed, warm and sincere. Later, as the moon climbed high, Amara slipped away to the stream. The water shimmered in the darkness, clean and peaceful. She touched the surface lightly. The stream had changed her life. Footsteps approached. Her grandmother joined her. "You stood tall today," the old woman said. "I stood because you taught me how," Amara replied. Her grandmother shook her head. "I only showed you the road. You chose to walk it." They stood together in silence, listening to the water move. In the distance, music drifted softly. For the first time, Amara did not feel divided between who she was and who she had become. The girl who once demanded respect was gone. In her place stood a young woman who understood its weight. The village that once whispered her name now spoke it with pride. And though Amara did not know what waited beyond the hills, she knew this moment would remain with her forever, not as a reward, but as proof. Proof that change was possible. Proof that humility could grow even in a heart raised on luxury. Proof that honor was not given by birth, but earned by choice. The feast ended, but its meaning did not. It followed Amara quietly, settling deep within her, ready to guide her into whatever life awaited next. The morning her parents arrived in the village dawned softly, as if the land itself wished to ease the moment. A light mist clung to the fields, and the air carried the scent of earth and water. Amara was awake before sunrise, sitting outside her grandmother's house, watching the sky slowly change color. She did not know exactly how she felt. She had imagined this day many times, her parents stepping out of their polished car, their faces stiff with expectation, their words careful and unsure. In her earlier days in the village, she had imagined proving them wrong through anger, through success, through stubborn pride. Now those thoughts felt distant. She rose quietly and began her morning chores as usual. She swept the yard, fetched water, and prepared breakfast. Her movements were calm, steady, familiar. The work grounded her, keeping her heart from racing too fast. Her grandmother watched her from the doorway. "You do not look afraid," the old woman said. "I am," Amara replied honestly. "Just not of the same things." Her grandmother nodded. "Good." When the sound of a car engine reached the village, heads turned. Children stopped playing. Women paused in their work. A few elders stood to observe quietly. The car did not belong here. It was too clean, too polished, too loud. Amara wiped her hands on her apron and walked forward. The car stopped near her grandmother's house. The driver stepped out first, followed by her parents. Her mother looked thinner. Her father's hair had more gray than Amara remembered. They stood still for a moment, taking in the village, the simple houses, the open paths, the people watching from a respectful distance. Then they saw her. Amara stood straight, her posture calm, her expression open. No crossed arms, no sharp gaze. She did not rush forward or hang back. "Mother, father," she said, bowing slightly. Her mother gasped softly. Her father stared, speechless. "Amara?" her mother whispered, as though afraid the girl before her might disappear. "Yes," Amara replied gently. "Welcome." That single word, welcome, did something to them. It was not the Amara they had known. Her father cleared his throat. We came to see you. I know, Amara said. Please, come inside. She led them into the house. Not ahead of them, not behind them, beside them. Her mother looked around, taking in the small space, the neatness, the simple order. You live here? She asked. Yes, Amara replied. With grandmother. Her grandmother greeted them warmly, offering seats and tea. Amara prepared the cups herself, moving with ease. Her parents exchanged glances, disbelief written across their faces. They sat. Silence filled the room at first, heavy and uncertain. Finally, her father spoke. The king sent word, he said, about the stream, about the award. Amara nodded. The village helped. I only shared what I knew. Her mother reached for her hand. You never used to say that. Amara met her eyes. I know. Tears filled her mother's eyes. We were afraid, she said. Afraid we had lost you. Amara felt her chest tighten. I was lost, she admitted. But you didn't abandon me. You sent me somewhere I could find myself. Her father lowered his head. For a long moment he said nothing. I was angry when we sent you away, Amara continued. I thought you were punishing me, but you were teaching me in a way I refused to learn. Her father looked up, his eyes wet. We should have done better. You did, Amara said softly. Just later than you wanted. Outside, villagers watched quietly, giving the family space. They had grown protective of Amara in their own way. After some time, her parents stood. We have come to take you home, her father said carefully. If you are ready. Amara looked around the small house. At her grandmother. At the doorway where she had once stood angry and defiant. I am ready, she said. But I will always carry this place with me. Her grandmother stood and embraced her. You came here as a child, she whispered. You leave as a woman. Amara's throat tightened. I will visit, she promised. I know, her grandmother replied. As they stepped outside, the village gathered, not blocking the way, but forming a quiet circle of farewell. Faces that once held doubt now held warmth. An elder stepped forward. You will always be welcome here, he said. Amara bowed deeply. Thank you for teaching me. The car felt strange to her now. Too soft, too quiet. As it moved away, Amara looked back at the village growing smaller behind them. Her parents watched her carefully. You have changed, her mother said. Yes, Amara replied. I had to. The drive back to the city felt longer than the journey out had been. Amara spoke less, thinking deeply. When the city finally appeared, tall and bright, she did not feel excitement, only awareness. At home, the gates opened. The house stood exactly as she remembered, yet it felt different. She stepped inside and greeted the staff properly. She thanked the driver. She carried her own bags. The staff watched in shock. That night, as Amara sat with her parents at dinner, she served them before herself. They ate slowly, watching her with quiet wonder. You don't have to do that, her father said gently. I want to, Amara replied. Later, alone in her room, Amara looked around at the luxury she once took for granted. It no longer defined her. She had been tested, reshaped, and returned. And though the city had welcomed her back, it would never own her the way it once had. Because Amara had learned something the village never needed to teach in words. True wealth was not what you had. It was who you became when everything was taken away. The city did not pause for Amara's return. Cars rushed past as they always had. Buildings stretched toward the sky, cold and shining. People hurried through their days, focused on their own paths. To the world outside her family's gate, Amara was just another wealthy girl who had disappeared for a while and come back again. But inside the house, everything had changed. On her first morning back, Amara woke before her alarm. The habit surprised her. For a moment, she lay still, listening. Not to insects or distant voices, but to the hum of machines and the soft echo of the city. It felt strange, like wearing clothes that once fit perfectly but now felt too loose. She sat up and made her bed. That small act would have shocked her former self. Downstairs, the staff moved quietly as they prepared breakfast. When Amara entered the kitchen, conversations stopped. Faces turned toward her with caution, as though they expected sharp words or demands. "Good morning," Amara said calmly. The words landed like something fragile. One of the maids replied slowly, "Good morning, miss." Amara smiled. "Thank you for your work." The maid blinked, unsure how to respond. Amara took her seat at the table and waited. She did not complain about the food. She did not ask for changes. She ate what was served and thanked the cook. Her parents watched from across the table, saying nothing. Later that day, her mother asked if she needed help unpacking. "I'll do it," Amara replied. Her mother hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Amara said gently. "I'm used to it." As she unpacked, Amara found the medal the king had given her. She held it for a moment, then placed it in a drawer. It was not something she needed to display. Its value was already inside her. Returning to the city came with temptations. Friends reached out, curious and eager. Some invited her to parties. Others asked for stories, not about growth or lessons, but about awards and praise. Amara chose carefully. She declined some invitations. She accepted others, but when she went, she listened more than she spoke. She noticed how people treated waiters, drivers, and cleaners. She noticed how easily laughter turned cruel. When a friend mocked a server, Amara spoke quietly. "That's not kind." The table fell silent. The friend laughed awkwardly. "You've changed." "Yes," Amara said. "I have." At home, her parents felt the change every day. Amara began running errands without being asked. She visited offices with her father, not to demand attention, but to learn. She sat with her mother in the afternoons, helping organize the household. When her mother fell ill one evening, Amara prepared soup and stayed by her side. She did not call for someone else. She stayed. Her parents watched her with pride and something close to regret. "You shouldn't have to do all this," her mother said once. Amara shook her head. "I want to." Luxury returned to her life, but it no longer ruled her. She still wore fine clothes. She still enjoyed comfort. But she no longer needed to be served to feel important. One afternoon, a maid accidentally spilled tea on the floor near Amara. The woman froze, fear clear in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly. Amara stood and took the cloth from her hands. "It's all right," she said. "I'll help." The maid stared, stunned. From that day on, the staff spoke of her differently, not in fear, but in respect. Outside the house, Amara began using her knowledge to help quietly. She supported clean water projects. She helped fund repairs without attaching her name. She visited the village when she could, bringing supplies and listening to concerns. She did not arrive as a savior. She arrived as family. Her grandmother greeted her with the same calm smile. "You have kept your balance," the old woman said. "I try," Amara replied. As time passed, Amara found herself at peace in ways she never had before. The hunger for attention faded. The need to prove herself dissolved. She learned that kindness did not weaken her place in the world. It strengthened it. One evening, her father sat beside her on the balcony, watching the city lights. "You are happier," he said. "I am," Amara replied. "Even without chasing everything?" he asked. "Especially because of that," she said. Amara understood now that wealth was not the enemy. Carelessness was. Power was not wrong. Pride was. She carried the village with her. In her voice, her patience, her choices. The girl who once embarrassed her parents had become their quiet pride. And as Amara continued her life in the city, she did so with steady hands and an open heart, walking through luxury, guided by humility, and choosing, every day, to be kind. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.